Hey, another mini video, just talking about my day. So, been reading a bit, just finished these two recently. This book about a week or two ago, and I just finished this one today. So, maybe I'll talk about them for a bit, although I'm not very good at sharing information, and maybe this is a way for me to practice. So, if you're not good at something, just practice and practice and practice until you're good at it, right? So this one, it was a really good book. I want to model my business after this because, by the way, this song has been looping for the longest time, like almost 10 minutes. I've just been obsessed with that song and this song too, Bruno Mars. That's what I like. Anyways, that's sidetracking. Joy Inc. is a book all about creating an atmosphere that promotes joy in your workplace. And so I actually really want to, talking with Mike. He's the founder and owner and CEO of IIS, International Internet Advertising Services Incorporated. It's a mouthful. But this book, Joy Inc., talks about how I don't really know how to go into detail. It's just how to promote joy in your workspace. And I think there's a lot of applicable things you can do. Like, just by showing people, being public with the numbers and the profit and the cost so people know in the company. Also being visible and accessible and showing a wall schedule to know that, to show that, be very open in public about everything because what you have affects everyone, and obviously you want to be able to really connect with the people working with you. And if you don't trust them, then what's the point of, like, you have to build it all from trust. And so you that's for the work environment. Also, you want to fail faster but smaller. So experiment a lot, but you want to start experimenting. And I always think you want to keep the 80-20 rule, or if you're more conservative, the 90-10 rule, where 80%, 90% is the main dish or the main course where you keep doing what's making you money at the time, but 20%, 10% of the time experiment, because that's what's going to get you ahead of the other people, the competition. And so, and it's not like your whole business is wrapped around that. It's just 10% or 20%. So you'll be able to survive if all that fails. And let's see, scope creep prevention. This book goes really into scheduling things instead of talks about how middle managers a lot of times after a meeting would approach a developer or this is a software company, so they would approach them and say, oh, just one more thing, do this one little thing, and I'll be able to make this sale. So, and it talks about how that one little thing, since people aren't used to estimating how long projects or little tasks will take, can end up costing hours of web development or software or coding time. So that's one thing you want to avoid. And this book does a fantastic job doing that. This book was talking about all the misconceptions of billionaires. One example was a lot of people think that billionaires are solo, like they do it all on their own, but in fact, a lot of times they had mentors or business partners. Like over 60% of people who've reached billionaire status have had partners. If you think of Bill Gates, it was Paul Allen and Steve Ballmer. I might have been mixing those names around. I think Steve Steve Jobs had Steve Wozniak, and there's Larry Page and Sergey, and basically a whole bunch of people who are billionaires had partners, so they didn't do it all on their own. And it talks about the difference between a performer and a producer. So producers are the ones that, basically all billionaires, most of the billionaires were producers, and producers are ones that have the creative idea, the insight, and the emotional, empathetic vision of companies. And basically a lot of billionaires, the same story goes, that they were working in middle management of big companies, GE, Capital, Toyota, or as a salesperson, and they just didn't have the freedom to exercise their creativity, and they got fed up and left. One of a really good example is what's his name? Amazon. Jeff Bezos was working in Wall Street at the time, making about $100,000, and he left to start Amazon, which he had weighed the pros and cons, and he was thinking, well, the worst case scenario, which is also what this book talks about, BATNA, best alternative. Best alternative to a negotiated deal, but that he wasn't negotiating, it was just life. The worst case scenario for him was if he tried Amazon and it failed, he could always go back to Wall Street and get a job. But he thought in 10, 20 years, if he didn't try to do Amazon, and Amazon, a different version of Amazon came, he would never be able to live with that. So that's what helped him make a decision. And so the difference between performers and producers is, in this age, we're a very performance-based generation, where everyone is focused on performance and rewards on performance. And producers, because they're going out there with creative ideas, fail often. But those failures aren't detrimental, because you learn a lot from them. But in a job environment, when everything's so short-term sighted and you have to, appease the stockholders of your company, if you do something that fails and they don't like it, then you basically get penalized and you get demoted, or you don't get to lead other projects. So not only do you fail, the things that you learn from failure aren't don't follow through. So it talks about different characteristics that billionaires have. Like, billionaires are, in this book it says, urgently patient, or patient urgent. Impatiently, or patient urgency. So it means basically they're urgent on day-to-day activities like meeting a client, or impatient to start something, but when they start, they have the endurance or the willpower to stick through with it to the end. And so and Tyler Lopez talks about this. This is called IPPI, impatient patient versus patient impatient. Meaning, some people always look to the New Year's in order to start their New Year's resolutions, their goals. So they're really patient to start things, and then impatient. So when New Year's comes and they start the diet, I forget the percentage, but a high majority of people drop their goals first or second week through New Year's. And it's because they're really patient, because they waited that long to start on New Year's, but when they started, they're really impatient on the results. So the importance is having it flipped around, be very impatiently patient. So start now, like the next day, or even right now, make a list, strategize for the next day, and then follow through with what you strategized, and be patient with what you want. So that was the self-billionaire effect. or The Self-Made Billionaire Effect by John Sfiokla, Mitch Cohen. I think those are two authors. And then How Extreme Producers Create Massive Value. Now, this is my strategy. One objective. Basically, I want to sit down with Mike and talk to him about our one objective. I want to discuss about how it will be a win-win for the both of us, how we can create that kind of environment, and basically what's his definition of win, what's my definition of a win, and a singular vision that we can both look at. And I also think that in businesses it's very important to manage expectations. Like, I can't expect him to give me 50% of his company from just joining in right away. And at the same time, I hope he's not expecting me to come into his business and skyrocket everything, because there's a little bit of a learning curve. But I think if we go through that, we can really benefit from working together, because I've been doing a couple personality tests, and it was weird. I've gotten ENTP a couple times. Extroverted, intuitive, thinker, and perceiver. Basically, extroverted is self-explanatory. I like to go out there a lot, and I gain energies from social events and talking to people. Intuition is I really have strong beliefs internally. Like, I believe in the ideas and the concepts that I have that come from within me. The other thing would be called sensing, and that's believing outside. And thinker, which means I'm very logical. I like to think things. I like math and just basically practical stuff. I like to be logical. And P, last but not least, is perceiver, which means I process information. It means the way I process information. So being a perceiver, when I sit here, I perceive a lot of stuff, and I act mostly on impulse. So I like to improvise a lot, and I like to have alternate options, which is good and bad. You want to have a balance, because you do want to stick to a strategy once you lay it out, but you need to have that plan in place. So that being me, I know that I suffer a lot from actually, what do I suffer from? Kind of forget. From impulse, and one of the problems with ENTPs is there's a lack of attention to detail. I'm a very a creative guy, and I have big ambitions, but I need someone I need someone to compliment me, who shares the same vision but is able to be a little more detail oriented than I am, and that's just the way I am. I mean, I don't want it to hinder me, so I want to improve that, but it's not going to be my strong point. So I want to convince him in that too, because no one can be balanced. No one can be perfectly extroverted and introverted, have the intuition and the feeling, the thinker and the perceiver, or intuition and sensor, thinker and the sensor, meaning he's more feelings and more empathetic, which I lack. And then the perceiver or judger. The way I process information, I improvise a lot more, so I'm action-based. And the other one is likes to plan things and more like that. So what I really want to stress to him, I want there to be kind of like an 80-20, like something that we focus on for the main money thing, but I want to be able to have the freedom and creativity to come in there and experiment a little bit, maybe 10% of the profits or 10% of the time. And I just needed to stress to him that I'll always be by his side if we're a good fit in the next couple of weeks. And basically basically he's the boss and I have to do whatever he says. So I really want to focus on sales, marketing, and networking. So I have to convey all that to him next meeting. So I think that's it for now, and we'll call this JTS 45.